Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, welcome to the Paranormal Portal. I'm your host, Brent Thomas, and I'm absolutely thrilled you're here with me on this fine Friday evening, and it's an exciting evening. Now, originally we had planned on having a special guest tonight. Mrs. Deborah Varner was going to be here to do readings on the show. However, unfortunately, she's been dealing with an illness, and she really tried but couldn't make it. What can you do? I mean, it's just one of those things. It's the season for illnesses and everybody to be trading colds and flus and all that fun stuff. So apparently she got her turn, and we certainly wish you well, Deb, and get better soon. And we'll certainly schedule it as soon as you're able to have you back. But so tonight you guys are just stuck with me, and I hope that's okay. But I hopefully have a decent show lined up for you guys, and I'm, of course, it's always wonderful when Deb comes on, and it's honestly it's really makes my job as a host a lot easier, because essentially I just turn into a receptionist. Like, Deb, call, got a call, Deb, got a call. And that's about it. So I just kind of sit back and enjoy the show just like you guys, which is phenomenal. But, of course, if she's not feeling well, there's just no way she can go forward, because I'm sure that in order to get in tune, to get in touch, and to dial it in, to get these messages, probably feeling good is important first. I'm sure it's got to be hard to make those connections if you're just running a fever and having real problems. But I don't know exactly what she's dealing with, but she just said she was sorry and couldn't make it. She wanted me to extend her apologies to all of you guys. She may or may not come into the chat room at some point. I don't know. But, unfortunately, it's just a tough night for her. And so we wish you well, Deb. We love you, and get better soon, because it's just not the same without you. So tonight, we're just going to talk about the reality of the paranormal. And what I mean by that, ladies and gentlemen, is what makes something real? What is it that makes it real? What is when we decide that something is real, or it's decided for us that this is real and this isn't? To me, of course, reality is incredibly subjective. I think that we all, of the billions of people on this planet, there are billions of realities. Some people may have versions of whatever they see in it, and it might correlate to other people's versions, but there's always going to be intricacies and uniqueness about each vision. So in my opinion, reality is subjective, and I'm not the one that spearheaded that idea, obviously. It's been around for a long time, but I definitely agree with that, if when you look at people who are, let's say, for instance, they are suffering from some kind of emotional disorder or, mental illness or whatever, for them, what they are experiencing is absolutely real. It doesn't help when somebody says, well, that's not real, because to them it is real. And, it would be, unfortunately, a lot of people kind of equate the paranormal with a delusion, that it's some kind of delusion. But here's the thing. There are, millions and millions and millions of people claiming that they've experienced something, that they've seen something, that they've felt something, that they've, seen things happen and experienced them firsthand. They've touched, they've tasted, they have all of these perceptions of these things happening. And does that make it real? And in my mind, it does. Now, of course, in the paranormal, there's plenty of people that are looking for their 5 minutes. They're looking for their attention. They're looking for their validation or their attention. And so they'll fabricate things, and they'll create hoaxes, and they'll do all of these things. And there's never any shortage of those people. And unfortunately, it's certainly, it's a double-edged sword, because not only is their credibility damaged, but everyone else who believes and pursues the truth in the paranormal is damaged by those very same people. And it also serves to invalidate the real honest people that are out there doing the work and trying to find the answers. And it causes the general public that doesn't believe to just dismiss it because this one guy this one time did this one thing, and so everybody over there is all full of malarkey or whatever you want to call it, and that's truly unfortunate. Now, I have had many experiences myself, and I have known, of course, all of you guys, most of you out there listening have probably experienced something in your life, even if you may not be a quote-unquote believer or knower, you've experienced something that doesn't make sense. Now, that could be just something like a precognition. It could be you've seen a spirit, you've seen a UFO, you've experienced some kind of creature that isn't supposed to be around, or something of that matter. And then it's real. At that point, it's real, at least in a large part. So my perception of it is that it is real because there are a lot of people out there saying it's real. There are a lot of people out there experiencing this reality. And therefore, if there are, then it is real. Because if the people that proclaim it's real, and myself included, then to me it is real. So I don't like to get into the, oh, it's not real. It's not real. You can't prove it. Well, there's a lot of things we can't prove, There are a lot of things that we can't prove. We can't, there's a lot of things we can't demonstrate how they work. And even some of the most simple things. We have theories. Take, for instance, magnetism. We have a lot of theories about why they work and what they do. And there's a lot of ideas surrounding that. But truly to dial in, what is a magnet and how can you prove and how can you, justify that your example of physics is what makes a magnet work. And so far, we're not there yet. We've got a lot of understanding to learn. But we know magnets are real. We know that they repel or attract other magnetic fields. And that's just the reality. So just because we can't always quantify things scientifically doesn't mean that it's invalid. And the saying that I like, and of course I didn't coin this phrase, but it is that the absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. So I think that's important to bear in mind when you're thinking about the paranormal. And maybe some of you out there don't. Maybe some of you out there do. But I'm sure if you're listening to the show, you've got to at least be curious. You've got to at least have an idea. So what I want to do right away tonight, though, is, and I was going to do this tomorrow night, but since we have an opening and Deb is not able to be here, I'm going to read you guys the emails that I got in, which are really cool, and I'm really very honored that you guys sent them in. Now, the first email is from one of our YouTube listeners, Teresa De La Vega, and she says, she's from Hawaii, and she says, aloha. Back in '95, I lived in an apartment on the west side of Maui, and when I was half awake, a night marcher had a spear at my throat. As I fully awoke, he stood there, 7 feet tall, beautiful, just wearing a nalu, which is a Hawaiian loincloth. And I'm hoping I'm saying that right. Yeah, it's nalu, N-A-L-U. I rubbed my eyes and heard best to talk to them, and told him I had respect and asked for permission to live there. And he then disappeared, and I moved not long after that. A couple of years later, I got a call to help out at a spa at the Ritz, and went to a coffee shop, and the guy was just saying how he was getting choked at night and had to move, and I was the first one to believe him. I asked him where he lived. He moved into the place that I moved out of. I've had many encounters, and there's lots of activity in the Hawaiian Islands. Much love, Teresa. And ladies and gentlemen, the night marchers, and I'm, of course, no expert on this. We would need someone like Obake to come in and really explain what it is. But the night marchers are these warrior spirits. And I believe that they were tied to the gods and goddesses of the islands, and they are the protectors. And they protect the sacred spaces, and they basically, the idea is if you see a night marcher, you got to get the hell away, because people die encountering these night marchers. They are just no joke. They are like, they don't play around. They are indeed known to attack and kill people. So, whether or not you believe in that is up to you. But if I was in Hawaii, I'd be believing in that, and I would definitely respect those traditions. And you don't play around with that kind of stuff. This isn't one of those where you go full Zach Baggins on them, like, come on, show me, because you're gonna look pretty stupid with a spear in your head. So I'm just saying. But yeah, they're no joke, and they say that if you're out at night and you encounter the night marchers, you're supposed to just lay down and play dead. That's like your only option, because if they think you're alive, they just attack. That's just what they do. So pretty potent and wild stuff. And thank you so much, Teresa, for sending that in. And it is amazing that your very house, the very location where you woke up to observe one with a spear to your throat, was the very same place this next guy lived. It's like, oh man. So I hope that you maybe filled him in on what to do about that, and maybe he can make an appeal to them to leave him alone, or maybe he's moved. But that's craziness. But amazing story, and thank you so much for sharing that with us. The next one is from a listener. Her name is Tracy, and it says, I would like to say I listen to your show daily. Oh, that's awesome. And I go to bed early, so I don't often get chances to listen live. But every day after work, you are my daily wind down. And I find all of the stories interesting, and often I learn something new. That's very cool, Tracy. Thank you. I hope you don't mind, but I would like to share with you one of my stories. And no, I don't mind. In fact, I'd love to hear all of your stories, and I'd love to share all of your stories. So please keep them coming. There is some background that I'd like to tell you to get to the main incident. Or she has to tell some background to get to the main incident, so that it makes some sense. So, my mother's side is from England, and I had a grandfather that loved to travel. He would come to the States every other year and to visit, and always made sure to spend individual time with myself and each of my brothers while he was here. During his visits, he became friends with our childhood babysitter, Wilma. And Wilma was like a grandmother to my brothers and I. And I remember the date clearly. It was June the 13th. I only remember it because it was my wedding anniversary, and I worked long hours and had a newborn child. And early, and man, I mean early, I heard the baby crying. I woke up my husband at the time and begged him to take care of the baby, as I was completely exhausted. He argued with me, and there was no crying. I got angry, and I couldn't understand how he could not hear her. It was so loud. I got out of bed and went to her room, and she was sound asleep. Like I said, I was exhausted, so maybe my mind was playing tricks on me. I went back to bed to get a couple more hours of sleep. After a couple hours sleep, I got up and went to work, and the feeling I had a feeling in my gut that hurt all day. Great. All I could think of was the last thing I need is to get a stomach bug or something. And I looked up at the counter and see my mother standing there crying. She said she needed to talk to me. She told me my grandfather passed away that morning. Anyone who knows me knows that I don't like to show emotions, and when I am upset, I just work harder. So back to work I went. I couldn't even comfort my mother. I just felt like I was close to a breaking point, and I couldn't handle much more. But more was going to come, whether I liked it or not. I made it through the day at work, barely. Finally made it home, and I wasn't home for 10 minutes, and the phone rings. I answered, slightly angry. I just needed time to rest. It was my mother, and thinking she just needed someone to listen to her, I was ready for a long conversation. It wasn't what I expected. She informs me that Wilma's son passed away that afternoon. We decided, since we couldn't be with the family in England during this time, we could at least be there for Wilma, and we were going to meet up at her house. On the way to Wilma's house, I asked my husband to stop at the local store. I felt the need to get her something. What? I had no clue. but I knew I didn't want to go empty-handed. At the store, I walked directly over to the flowers, stood there for a period of time just staring at the flowers, and through the door, I'm sorry, I got to move in a little bit. It had to have been about 10 minutes before I finally said to my husband, without looking at him, "What kind of flowers do you really buy a woman who's lost her son?" He says to me, "White. You buy her white roses." I asked if he was sure, and he said, "Trust me." Okay, white roses it is. I bought the roses, and we left. Fast forward to after we left Wilma's house, I want to explain one small detail about myself I've left out. I live with severe anxiety, and at one point in my life, I went 4 years of not leaving my house due to anxiety. Oh, wow, that's tough. I have battled and won, but there are some days it still grasps a hold of me, and today was a day for it. I was upset on the way back home because I felt ridiculous over the flowers. So many people came over to Wilma's and not a single person brought flowers. Looking back, she never sat them down, carried them with her the entire visit. But anxiety is a silly thing, and I was just upset. I had done something, and that, in a sense, made me stand out. So I said to my husband, "I can't believe I let you talk me into the roses." This started a huge argument, and he said I was crazy and that he never once told me to get them. He said he got tired of waiting for me to decide and had actually walked away from me. You can only imagine the rest of the evening because I just knew I heard him, clear as day, say, "White, you buy her white roses." Finally, we calmed down, and life for us continues. The next day, my mother came to my house, and we started talking about plans for the family in England were making for Grandpa's funeral. And everything sounded like it was going to be beautiful, and I was sad. I wasn't going to be able to say my goodbyes to the family, or with the family. And as my mother was leaving, she says, "Oh, yeah, and they will be playing a song at his funeral, 'White Rose of Cornwall.'" Everything at that moment made sense. The baby crying was my grandfather passing. The needing to buy white roses was him needing to be a support to a friend. I think of him almost daily since I couldn't be at the funeral. I went and got a tattoo during the time of the service, and it is a white rose in front of a British flag. Sorry if this is long. I've skipped over a bit, but I'm nervous writing you, and I've told very, very few of my story. Thank you for reading and being there for me to tell at least one of my experiences. Wow, that's a beautiful story. That's amazing. Tracy, do you suppose it could have been your grandfather that was telling you the color roses to buy? That it was him? Yeah. That is just a beautiful story, and an amazing story, and thank you so much. I'm absolutely honored to share that, and honestly, keep them coming. I'd love to hear more of the things you've seen and experienced. Those are absolutely profound and beautiful. So, very, very cool. Thank you again. So, I hope you guys liked it as much as I did. I thought that was amazing. But the phone lines are open tonight, ladies and gentlemen, so if you want to call and be a part of the show, please feel free. The number is 213-233-3998. Again, 213-233-3998. You can also call 833-TFR-LIVE. And if you happen to be across the pond, you can call, on the UK, you can call 44203-393-2871. Again, 44203-393-2871. If you have a story of your own you'd like to share or just want to pipe in with your ideas about the paranormal, then please do. And there's Miss Diane, right on cue. Awesome. Just a second here. Hi, Diane. How you doing?
Hi there. How you doing? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Is there a humming in the background or something? Humming or whining?
Oh, it's my cleanse infection tone that I'm playing in the background there.
Oh, okay.
I get rid of it here.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that'd be great.
That's what we haven't talked about yet is that they're finding out the tones Resonance. Oh gosh. Well, that's a whole nother subject. Resonance strengthens and dissonance weakens, and so you can strengthen or weaken something through tones, sound.
Right.
Anyway, I have a story about white roses I want to tell. Is that
Okay.
okay?
It is, but just know that we have 5 minutes before the break. So if you want to hold on the line and we can discuss something else until then and bring that up after the break.
Sure.
Okay, let's do that.
Sure.
So tell me more about the resonance because I think that's interesting.
Okay, well, this is something that Nassim Harriman, and I don't know how many of you know of Nassim Harriman, but wow, if you could get him as a guest,
Okay.
He has got massive frontal lobes. But anyway, resonance, it turns out that sound is how many of you have seen cymatics? Have any of you know of cymatics?
Now that sounds familiar to me.
It's sound patterns. Huh?
I said that sounds familiar to me, cymatics, yeah.
Right. Well, they've done all kinds of experiments. It'll create different frequencies will create sound in patterns in water or sand or whatever, and they show it on sand so you can actually see it with your eyes. The patterns different frequencies make, and they change as you change the frequency. Well, every single thing has a frequency, everything, and I sound far away. Let me try and fix that. Is this any better?
Sure.
Is that better?
Yeah, it is actually. That sounds good.
Okay. Yeah, every single thing has a frequency, and this is kind of, once again, speaks a little bit to maybe the simulation theory. However, we're not going to go into that. Everything has a tone, in other words, a sound, a frequency, that it vibrates to, that will strengthen it if you play that tone. And likewise, the opposite, when you play the opposite dissonance, that would be a dissonance, the opposite, exact opposite wave, you would flatten it, which would mean you would kill it, destroy it. It would be flat, flatline, gone.
Okay.
So, Royal Rife back in the 40s found out that if you play like the dissonance of cancer, cancer just poof, starts to disappear. Right?
Right.
And the same with a cold, and the same with every other thing. Or if you want to strengthen somebody's heart, you play their heart resonance, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what I was playing in the background. You were hearing one of the tones that is supposed to be a healing tone. So that is what you heard.
Oh.
And
gotcha.
Nassim Harriman was the founder of one of the founders of the Resonance Academy, which they're working. But Royal Rife was like raided, and his machines were taken, and there was one machine left. They're beginning to come back with with that stuff now, but it actually is interesting because that means if you had the resonance, if you knew, for instance, if you had a bad haunting, this was just in my head. If you had a bad haunting or something, if you had some trouble that you were having, if you knew the resonance, if you could find the resonance of it, you could probably just play a tone and get rid of it.
Wow. Okay. That is really wild.
I mean, that is a wild thing. And I think that probably one day what we're going to have is we're going to have music or tone operated healing, I mean, instead of like cutting on people and stuff, maybe we'll just be playing them frequencies and stuff instead.
Right.
But so anyway, that's what that's about, and you can look that up more online and see what that's about.
So now does this also plays into the 440 versus 432 or versus 440 hertz for the vibration?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and you're talking about the solfeggio scales, the just scales as opposed to what we have now.
Right.
And by the way, that can only be played on an instrument that is fretless. If you have an instrument with frets, you can absolutely not play the just scale.
Oh, really?
That's one of the ways they put in to block it. It's kind of weird, huh?
Yeah,
They
that
don't want
is.
us to play that, be able to play that. But East Indian music, you can, and Oriental music, they still have instruments. And the Western instrument that would be able to play it would be a violin, because they don't have frets on the violin. So there you go. I don't know. What else you want to know about that? Without
Well,
doing a whole show on it.
no, that's awesome, and that's wonderful stuff for people to look into. Now we're just about to go to break, and so, ladies and gentlemen, of course, we'll be right back after our first break, and we'll get into Diane's story of the white roses and such. But don't go away because the adventure's just beginning here in the portal tonight. So hang on, we're always going in. Well, I guess that means we're back on the air. That was on my end. That bumper music was really clippy, and I understand some of you guys on YouTube are having issues with the stream. I'm not sure what's going on. Everything looks healthy on my end, so perhaps there's something going on with YouTube or just our channel on YouTube. I don't know, but everything's green here, so I don't see the latency being here. But I do apologize if that's the case. But hopefully you stick it out, and hopefully it kind of planes out here. But we are the Paranormal Portal, and you are tuned in to us here on Truth Frequency, TFRlive.com, iHeart, TuneIn, and TalkStream Live, as well as simulcasting live on YouTube. So we are just all over the place. But we'll keep an eye on it and see what's going on. I don't know. But right now we're joined by caller Diane Swiger, who is joining us and has a story to share about white roses as well. So, Diane, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Well, take it away.
I'm sorry that you didn't hear all that.
That I didn't hear all what?
People are saying that as soon as I said something about a tone would flatten something, would kill something, everything went out for them. They couldn't hear anymore.
Oh, weird. Okay, yeah. I mean, I'm watching about, whenever we're connected on the network, I got about 15 things that I'm watching.
Really weird.
So it's really tough, but I'm trying to keep an eye on it now that, Pixie, of course, messaged me and told me as well. So we'll keep an eye on it, but
yeah,
it's the portal.
It's very weird. It's like, oh, well, we can't get too superstitious, but it was a funny coincidence there.
Right. You're just bringing all that truth to the stage, and you're getting us in jeopardy. So take it away with the white rose.
Oh, no.
Let's hear about that.
Okay, the white roses. This is my dad had prophetic dreams too. Okay. I mean, that was something I got from him, was his prophetic dreams.
Okay.
And I mean, he even made people money in the stock market and everything by having dreams. He made one of his friends a lot of money, telling him his friends had come to him to dream about the stock market. So my dad didn't really play the stock market, but his friend did and actually made money.
Oh,
but
cool.
I don't understand all that. But anyway, so we went to a church called Catherine Coleman's Church. She was not a televangelist. Please, Catherine, forgive me. She would never be a televangelist. She was a radio evangelist.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
And you could also go see her on Sunday, and she was a miracle-working person, which maybe gave me an early idea that maybe things could happen in ways that were beyond physical.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of grateful for that experience.
Right.
But, because people I knew actually got healed. So that was like, oh, gosh, that can happen, huh? And it gave me that paradigm that, hey, it can happen. But, so we had been going to that church a very long time, and my dad was a big fan of hers. I mean, he was a super fan, right? Mm-hmm. And we heard that she had gotten sick. And my dad had this dream of her with holding a white rose.
Oh, wow.
And she said to him, my dad's name was William. She said, William, you're not supposed to be here yet. Oh. And she smiled at him, and she was holding a white rose. Mm. And she was dressed all in white, in her white outfit, which we'd seen a bunch of times. And she seemed to be very happy and radiant and smiling. And so then my dad's dream ended, and he woke up and he said, I think something has happened to her. I think maybe we're going to hear news about her passing. And sure enough, the next Sunday we hear that she had passed, and her coffin in her hand had been a white rose, and on her coffin had been a bunch of white roses.
Wow.
And so, yeah, so...
That is so powerful.
And I'm there like, where's those white roses again?
There it is, yeah.
So,
there it is. Now, you said you have prophetic dreams as well, huh?
Yeah, I do.
Uh-huh.
I actually foresaw my own death 33 years ago.
Oh, that's
As
right.
a
You
matter of
said that.
fact, this November.
That's right. That's right. And that's
Right.
that to me is just so powerful because it really does seem to, looking at it from a point of physics, it does seem to, definitely validate the fact that time is not this linear, unveiling of happenings. It's fluid and there's shortcuts and time is relative as well. And I don't know what it is and how does it happen, but it seems that information is not limited to the time frame it's in, that's available. And of course, when you guys do readings like you and Sean and Deb, you guys are peering into another part of our reality that a lot of us don't understand. But I just think that that's so powerful when premonitions like that happen. Now, I experienced a premonition myself. I've experienced several, but one such premonition, I was working doing patrol, and in a correctional facility, and I was patrolling the perimeter, and I was booking along pretty good. I mean, it wasn't really fast, but there was construction going on in the facility as well. And I had this vision as I was driving along. I had this vision of this white cargo, like a 1-ton cargo truck, come out from between two buildings, just flying. And I was like, oh, I got to slow down. And I slowed down, and not 20 seconds later, I got to that intersection. And if I hadn't slowed down, boom, that white van came out just as I pictured it. And if I hadn't slowed down, they would have clipped me and would have hurt me bad. So it was just really neat to get those kind of insights. And it really makes you wonder about what is possible. I mean, how much is possible? Because I really think stuff like this is just the tip of the iceberg, Diane.
Oh, I'm quite sure it is, because actually, remember what I said about what they're finding out about light, and that was Lynn McTaggart, by the way, who brought that information to my email box. But some time ago, saying that light actually does not go in one direction either in time, but tries all possible paths to get to where it's heading, and then goes back in time, picks the best path, and uses that one.
Isn't that just crazy? It's just like,
And
wow.
And it sounds crazy, doesn't it?
That just cooks your bacon, though, because it shows an intelligence. It shows a sentience, right?
Yeah, it's really weird. And it's like the other thing is we've all heard of the double slit experiment and all that,
Yep.
and how we influence things by observing it. Well, they also found out by doing it a little bit different way that they could actually influence it by a projected future action.
Really? Okay.
Yes, and that really blew their minds. It's like, no way, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it. So there's really quite a lot about time that we've been vastly misled about. I think we need to set aside what we think we know, because really we got a lot
of learning to do.
We got some. Yeah.
Yeah,
we
sure
got
do.
some learning to do, because we have been told this Euclidean thing for so long that, and I mean, there's still an old guy down where I eat lunch that he'll still argue all of this Euclidean stuff, and I'm like, well, that would have got you a PhD 50 years ago. But what we're doing now, what we're finding out now, is just blowing the doors off the barn,
Right.
And there is nothing going to be the same once it all comes out, once everything that we are finding comes out, all the findings are found. I don't know if that's ever going to happen. Can we ever know everything?
I don't know.
But, I mean, once all this starts coming out and into general knowledge, I wonder how it's going to really affect people, because people are so used to being told everything is just a certain way and this and so, and time flies in one direction. No, it doesn't. Obviously not.
I think it'll
Obviously,
it'll be kind of
incorrect.
It'll be kind of a split, right? There will be some of us that'll celebrate because we've known that there's more going on here, but I think other people will just be kind of shattered and kind of a mess because their world is no longer, refined and tamed, and everything is back to uncertainty, and some people just don't know how to handle uncertainty. So very cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
I look at that and I go, wow, some of these things that we're finding out now, we are on the verge of such a transformation
Mm-hmm.
that if we can only keep our society together long enough without getting ourselves blown up or some stupid thing, or some other dumb thing happening to us, if we can only get past this point, we're probably going to have things that'll, in just the next few years. I mean, and also when you think about that, and you think about things that we consider paranormal, you think about if there are civilizations that have started long before us. Look at how far we came in 100 years.
Right.
What if they're 100 years, 1,000 years in advance of us? What would they have? Right. We cannot judge what they may have by what we have. We have got to we got to look at it and say, no, wait a minute. They could have jumped this whole timeline thing. They could have jumped this whole speed of light thing.
Right.
They could have just totally, found some way around all that stuff. And so then maybe all they have to do is just walk through a portal. Ooh. And, they're on halfway across the universe or something. Who knows?
Exactly.
We don't know.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Diane, for calling in. It's always a pleasure. And I love the ideas that you bring to the table. That's just brilliant. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for giving me a chance to say them. Okay, hugs and kisses. I love you, family. I love you, Brent and Dawn.
Love you, too.
Kiss Dawn right on the tip of the nose. I know he probably would really love that.
Okay.
He's going to hurt me now, right? No.
I can't be held responsible. That's all I'm saying. All right, Diane, have a wonderful night. Thank you again.
Okay, bye. I hope it's not runny when I do it. Okay, bye.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, and we got another caller on the board here, and this is area code 772. You're on the air.
Hi, it's DJ Caveman from the chat room in CFR.
Oh, hey, brother. How you doing? Welcome to the show, and thanks for calling in.
Hey, thank you. Diane was, I loved her story. So my experience was a little bit different as far as it's more UFO related, but
fantastic.
Certainly a kindred spirit with the whole vibration stuff, and it's fascinating to try to study all that goes on, and it's what happens with the patterns, and when they play all the stuff on the drums, and you get the patterns that emerge, and
right.
It's totally an interesting subject, what she was relating.
Yeah, she's awesome, and she's been a contributor to the show for a long time now, and always brings something unique and wonderful to the table. So it's a lot of fun. But I mean, that's what I love about these call-ins is all of you guys have unique experiences and perspectives, and I've learned so much from people calling into the show that probably a lot more than I've ever taught anybody.
Well, that this is what makes this such a great forum, is that we can do that, and we all have some kind of different stuff, and I like the idea that we're all kind of trying to figure stuff out. We've all kind of find ourselves here doing this, either listening to the show or trying to call into the show, or participating in the chat room.
Mm-hmm.
We're all trying to what the hell's going on here, kind of thing. And so because a lot of it is very weird, and there's just more going on out there than people will.
I agree.
Will want to admit to, and especially try to talk to, even once you've got intimate innocent people that, hey, you try to tell them, hey, I've got this weird thing that happened, and you get partially into the story, and they're like, oh my God, geez, I'm out of here, man.
Well, one of the cool things,
stop,
though,
shut up.
one of the cool things I think, though, is just the idea that I think it's now is the time when it's a lot more acceptable to have these conversations than, think about, 20, 30 years ago. If you talked about seeing a UFO, for instance, and I've seen one myself, so I'm really excited to hear what you experienced. But if you would have told this story, 30 years ago to normal company, it would be a quick way to become a social pariah. People would laugh and mock you and
Right.
ostracize you. But it's like now
Classic.
people. Go ahead.
Classic 50s crazy lady has sex with man from Venus kind of thing, and she says nuclear weapons make them feel sad kind of thing. So.
Yeah, exactly.
There are those crazy stories out there, but there's also and who knows about the lady from the 50s who had sex with a guy from Venus.
Yeah.
Maybe
maybe
she went through something weird. So,
right. Exactly.
So anyway, my it was a couple of years ago. Was just normal, just going through work. I was working. I was a network engineer up in at a utility company, and just going through my normal day. And on a Wednesday afternoon, it just entered into my head. And some people, and we've talked a little bit about this in other forums here on TFR, where your own little inner voice is you kind of talk to yourself and in your own, and this is apparently something that is not totally everybody experiences, but what entered into my brain on a Wednesday afternoon was, you're going to see a UFO this weekend, and it was in my own voice. It was not, and it was something that was about every hour. This would just break in. It was kind of like the music in your head that you can't get out. Right. And then it wasn't something that it was initiated by me at any point, but it was just, and after, so this was happening every hour or so. And so I got to, kind of concentrate on the idea that was coming in, and, where is this coming from? And
right.
It wasn't me. It was coming in from someplace else, but it was in my voice, in my head, and it was just, you're going to see a UFO this weekend.
Wow.
And I thought the thing was completely ridiculous, and was completely annoyed with it. And just kind of went on about my day. And Thursday came along, and things got a little bit. It wasn't quite every hour. It was every hour and a half, 2 hours. Friday came along, and it was a little bit less. And every 3-4 hours, it was still in there. And I'm still feeling completely ridiculous about the whole thing. And I'm not going to tell anybody about this. I'm just keeping it to myself. And,
sure.
Do that. Right. So Saturday comes along, and it's time to go out and run errands and do some. I had some shopping to do and get some groceries and some stuff to fix up the house and that kind of stuff. But I was looking up, and I was like, maybe I'll see something this weekend.
Right. And
by the time Sunday rolled around, I had gone completely, and pretty much didn't do anything on Sunday afternoon. Just kind of lazing around the house. All the stuff's done, and just kind of relaxing Sunday afternoon.
Sure.
It started to get dark, probably getting in towards dusk, and another thing popped in. It was like, you're gonna miss it, and it was just kind of playful like that. It's like, you're gonna miss it. You better get up and go.
Wow.
And but what the hell? So I'm living down here in Florida, and I was living down over in Vero Beach, and I was about a mile from the beach, and I thought, well, what the hell? I'll just go, and I'll go down to the beach, and they've got some restaurants down there, and I'll have some dinner. I'll sit, have a glass of wine, and stare out over the ocean, and see what happens.
Right.
And so I got dressed up, and went down, and what happened is that so I, without getting too detailed, I guess, about it, that I ended up out on a place, and without explaining how the beach at Vero Beach works. I was out on they have a boardwalk kind of thing where you can kind of go, and it's just a cute little town.
Okay.
And so I walked out, and it turned out to be a lot colder out that night than the wind breeze, and so I walked down totally unprepared. It was probably in its 50s, high 50s or something, and when I left the house, there was no ocean breeze, and when I got down to the ocean, it was there was an ocean breeze, and probably 15, 20 miles an hour, and it got to be pretty cold. I got out there, and it's like, okay, so this is not going to be something that I'm going to try to, it's freaking cold out. I'm not going to sit out on the patio, and this is completely ridiculous. Besides,
right,
and I'm going to give this 10 minutes, and I'm out of here. And well, what happened is I walked out onto the deck, and I was looking to the north, and just kind of looking around, looking for crazy light or whatever. And there's planes. It's South Florida, so there's planes that are always going back and forth from the Bahamas and whatnot, small planes.
Sure.
And it takes about 2 seconds to figure out, okay, that's a plane. And then there was this flight. What happened was that I was jerked to look south. It was not. It was totally involuntary. To look at a star. So it was dusk, and the stars were coming out, and so there's a few stars in the sky, and I was jerked to the south, and I got fixated on this one star that I'm looking at it, and okay, that's just a freaking star. And I'm looking at it, it starts jumping around. It's going up, it's going down, to the right, to the left, to the sideways, and it's screaming, and in feeling, it's like, here I am. I'm showing you to myself. I'm showing you to you.
Wow.
And it was, and this happened. This was going on for a minute or two. It was just, I'm kind of looking at this thing, going, well, what the hell? That's not a plane. It's not a helicopter. It's not anything. It's doing things that are. And I didn't want to. It's not. It was snap moving.
Right.
It wasn't like disappearing and reappearing in another area. It was happening so fast that it kind of looked that way, but it was still kind of moving.
Wow.
So so now I'm fixated on this thing, and it looks like it's coming towards me. And it's still, it's about dusk, and I'm thinking, I've got my phone in my pocket, and I need to pull my phone out and start making a recording of this thing.
Okay,
But
DJ.
I was so.
Hold on a second, because we're just about to go to our break. So I want you to hold the line. Can you hold the line? Because I really want to hear the rest of this story. This is amazing. So we're going to go to break, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll be back in just a few minutes, and we will catch the rest of this story. And then we got to ask you some questions, brother, because this is fantastic. And I mean, do you have time to stick around?
Yeah, the best part's coming up. I haven't even got to the good part yet.
Okay, perfect timing then. We're going to go to break, ladies and gentlemen. Don't go away. There will be the second hour of the Paranormal Portal right around the corner here. So get a snack, get a break, use the loo, and I'll meet you back here in just a couple minutes.
Play their games. Everybody loves to place their bets. They don't understand the price I paid. They don't care to comprehend. Trace their lines upon my body, dripping scars across my heart. Raging anger pours inside me as their lies keep falling apart. Just make sure that you're well fed. I'm not wrong yet. I'm not broken yet. I'm not broken yet.
I can't see you, Mommy. Where are you? I've never sensed anything like it. Carol Ann is not like those she's with. They're attracted to the one thing about her that's different from themselves. Her life force. It is very strong. It gives off its own illumination. It is a light that implies life and memory of love and home and earthly pleasures. Something they desperately desire, but can't have anymore. Right now, she's the closest thing to that.
Poltergeist are usually associated with an individual. Hauntings seem to be connected with an area. A house, usually.
Poltergeist disturbances are of fairly short duration, perhaps a couple of months. Hauntings can go on for years.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Paranormal Portal. I'm your host, Brent Thomas, and we are live and unscripted here on this fine Friday evening. It is the 28th. My God, New Year's is right around the corner. But before we go any further, we're being joined right now by DJ Caveman, a chatter from TFR's chat room, and he's sharing with us a story of his first encounter with a UFO. And are you there, sir? DJ Caveman, are you there?
Hello.
Hey, there you are.
Yep.
Good. I'm glad we didn't lose you.
All right.
All right. So now I gotta ask you, when you first saw this thing on the horizon, you're on the beach and you see it out in the horizon. Is it like really far away at first, or is it relatively close at first? Would you be able to gauge a distance on it?
No, at that point, no.
Okay.
I thought it was a star at first. So when it started moving around, it was obviously out there. But as far as gauging the distance,
Okay.
there weren't, it was dusk, and there were stars starting to appear on the, the brightest stars. Venus was coming out, and
Right.
and it ended up being a moonless night. So it was getting dark pretty fast, and there were stars coming out. And the first inclination that I had was that it was a star.
Mhm.
But then it started jumping around all over the place.
Wow.
And so I couldn't really tell. I was trying to figure out how far out what it was, but I couldn't really, at that point it was star kind of distance,
Sure.
and
Right.
couldn't really make it out.
Okay.
But it started getting closer.
Okay.
Yeah, right. So it started, and then it became obvious that it was getting closer to me, and it was pretty cool out that night. And so there's nobody else out there. Typically, we're at dusk. It was wintertime. We're talking 6 o'clock kind of sunset thing, and and it was, it was breezy. It was season, so there was a lot of people out, but everybody, it was too cool to and too breezy to be out, just kind of like out walking around.
Okay.
So nobody was out there with me when I was out there.
Wow.
I was out next to a restaurant, so there was people out at the bar, sitting around drinking at the bar, and but I didn't. At that point, I was completely fixated on this thing starting to get closer,
Right.
and it eventually, and then at some point, the light went out, and about the time I could see a physical craft, and it came across the beach. It was probably 200 feet away, probably 40, 50 feet in the air, and it just kind of came across the beach, and it was probably 50, 60 feet in length and probably 12 to 15 feet in height, but it was pretty much a ship at that point. But I could see a physical craft. It wasn't making any noise. It was only a couple hundred feet away, and it was pretty low, and it was coming across the beach, and that light had gone off. I was looking at a physical craft. It was completely obvious. It didn't have any other light markers on it. It didn't have any windows on it. I didn't see any space aliens or any of that kind of thing. And while I'm watching this thing come across, I'm thinking that it is a man-made kind of thing. This is one of the TR-3Bs or something like that, and I'm confused that, why did I get this premonition that this thing would be coming across? And, it was, you're going to see a UFO, and I'm looking at a UFO. And what happened was that it came across and finally disappeared. So there were some higher story buildings on the beach, and it disappeared behind one of the buildings.
Wow.
So, yeah, but I couldn't see it. So at this point, I thought, you know what? I'm going to track this damn thing down. And so I ran back to my car, and I'm going to try to follow it and see what it does. And so I jumped back in the car. So I went back to the car, jumped in the car, and started trying to follow it around town a little bit. But there were street lights, there was trees in the way, and it was pitch black at this point. And this thing had obviously turned its lights off. And I went over. I thought, well, I'll hit this bridge and go. And it overlooks all of all of the area. It's out of the way. There's no trees. There's a kind of a bay area kind of there, and I thought, well, if there's any place I'm going to kind of see it, it's going to be there. And there was a bunch of traffic out that night, and so I couldn't go. I thought I'd go slow over the bridge and take my time, and I couldn't go slow without being, a hazard.
Sure.
And right, so I just kind of went over the beach. I'm like, well, now what am I going to do? And so I thought, well, so there is this. There's an out island. If you're not familiar with Florida, you have the out island kind of thing where, where all the beaches are at, and then you've got this, water area that can vary in size, and then you go, now you're on shore.
Okay.
So I went over. So I came off the out area, the water area, or the out island area, and over the bridge, and I thought, well, now I'm kind of into it. I'm going to be a lot of it into it, and I thought, well, and it was kind of cold out that night, so I thought, well, there was this area to the north that. It was in the middle of this, as the little out island in the middle in the water, and I'll just go up there. I'll sit. I'll sit with the radio on, and with a Sunday night, and I was a TFR listener, so I thought, well, what the hell? And I'll just listen. I'll just stream something over the phone, and turn the heater on and sit in the car and look for whatever this thing might be.
Right.
And so I got up there, and it wasn't too far away. It was only 2-3 miles away.
Okay.
And it was completely pitch black. Wow. And I got a little freaked out. So there was no lights anywhere. So they had it was a little island. It's a good little fishing spot. They've got some picnic areas off to the side of the road. They had, you can pull off one side or the other. Just a little artificial island, really, when they were dredging all of the, for the boats to go by through the kind of a canal. And so I got there, and I had visions of Travis Walton going through my head. It was like, holy crap, I'm tracking down a UFO, and I'm out in the middle of nowhere. Right. And this is probably not the brightest idea, and I need to get the hell out of here fast. And so I got a lot of it freaked out. Right. And I thought, well, I'll go back, and at this point it's been half an hour probably since the initial seeing of it. Right. And and I thought, well, the whole thing's over. It's just time to go home and figure out what the hell just happened. Right. And so I went back out there was two ways I could get home. So I went back out to the barrier island, and then went south at that point. And this was a particular place where there were no houses, nothing, anything. You're just out there, and it's just nature, and it's ocean and nature, and don't hit the turtle kind of thing. And suddenly, over to my right, about 40 feet off the ground, and really just, and like maybe from a road perspective, it was like 2 lanes over. A light comes on, like probably 10, 12 feet in diameter, and it's shining down on my car. And I'm going 35, 40 miles an hour, just kind of, was just kind of cruising along, kind of reflecting about the whole night. Yeah. And it's shining down on my car. And I'm thinking, do I stop? Do I, what the hell do you do? But I wasn't, I was freaked, but I wasn't, like scared or anything. I was like, okay, so this thing is playing with me at this point. It's not trying to be malevolent or anything. It's just like, it wants me to know that it's there. And, so this happened. So I'm driving along with this thing with it shining its light on me for probably a good 30, 40 seconds easily. So we started to get back into where there are houses and stuff. And then it just went out. It came on. It was like a light switch. Light came on. There it is. It's driving alongside me. It's matching my speed. It's can't be more than 60, 80 feet away. It's a 10, 12-foot light. It's shining at my car, and I'm just going to drive it along. And then it went out. So wow, that was pretty much it. I mean, the idea I got was, so I had that little thing that was, so as far as the psychic event was concerned, it was a message, obviously this thing had started on a Wednesday, or not obviously, but obvious to me, I guess, right. That the whole thing started on a Wednesday that, hey, you're gonna have this experience coming up, and then lo and behold, here it is Sunday night, and I'm having this experience, and what I was getting is, don't worry, when you're gonna be fine when the bad stuff happens. Was the message I got. Wow. Other than that, and then it went out, and I went home. I was completely freaked out. I thought about, okay, so I need to write a MUFON report, or I like Filer's Files for anybody that's into UFO stuff. Mm-hmm. Filer's Files is a good spot to go. And I thought, well, I'm just too freaked out to write anything about this. And, I was still trying to process it But then Monday morning came along, and I just got up and went to work, and the whole thing kind of faded. So, so I guess that's my unique story as far as, so it's a little bit, they had this thing had definitely gone out of its way to somehow, chalk this whole experience up to, well, it's just a TR3B, and, it's just a bunch of guys that have, they're signed up for the military or whatever. They're running the craft, and it's just super secret, and it's a human thing. And then, like, why would they bother? Why would they bother to or how could they possibly do this voice in my head thing? And why would they bother to do it to begin with? And same with, okay, so it's somebody from someplace else, and why would they bother to do that? Right. So, the whole thing just chalked up to just flat out weird.
Well, it's one of those experiences that actually raises more questions, than answers. And it's really cool to have had that experience. But I know what you're talking about. How you're just like, well, what next? What now? What does this mean? Did anything happen? Do I really understand what just occurred? And, that's got to be a tough place to try to get through.
Well, and now try to explain it to people. So, we've got an interesting, and that's what I like about this, with you guys, is that you got an excellent forum to try to vet this stuff out. And I mean, I'm not trying to say, one thing or another. It's just like, this is what happened, and I don't know what the hell's going on.
Well, that makes you a contactee, I would say, that for some way or another. And I would be curious now, of course, the first question, do you have Rh negative blood?
Yes, I do.
See, we're getting there now. Now, has anybody in your family ever experienced UFO activity?
Yeah, my mom did, and I have a bit of a birthmark.
There you go.
Strange one.
See, this is, it's usually the case, from what I understand, that contactees are generational. Like, they just seem to follow family lines for some reason. And the telepathy, of course, we have a good friend of ours, Jim Mount, who is a contactee as well, has been on the show, but he talks about, him all the time, having this telepathy going on, and what an amazing experience that is, and how he's been in contact with them. And I would be curious, DJ, if you started asking questions, if answers would be given to you, because to me, what it suggests is that you may very well be plugged in to their network in some way or another. I mean, it's, again, I don't pretend to be able to explain how, why, what, or whatever, but this is not a new phenomena for you. I would bet money that this is something that's been going on around you your whole life. It's just sometimes we don't always notice it.
Well, that's true. I've had other strange experiences too.
We got to talk more.
since I was a kid. So, on the other hand, and I have been a researcher. I mean, I found my way to here, and this is an excellent forum for people that are curious about this kind of stuff, and or whether they're experiencers or not, and the thing that bugs me about the whole idea of trying to, I've read I've studied, we had John Mack and, with the whole abduction thing, and have I been abducted is not the first time that this has come up, or, I've thought about this.
Right.
So now, they don't get any answers when they do the regression stuff, and when they do the, all they do is get more questions. Mm-hmm. So, to try to delve into this, for me, I've always thought that, if there is something there, that, if I dig into this, it's just gonna break the scab. It's
Sure.
gonna make it start bleeding again. So,
Well, there is that.
uh,
There is that, because it's one of those things that once you open the rabbit hole and you start going down, I mean, what then? How far does it go? What does it mean? What does it end up meaning? And God, that's true. I mean, you got to be really prepared for that journey before you make it.
and I've always thought that it's not. It's always been something I didn't really want to do. I did,
Okay.
but there's been other premonition stuff, that I resonate with the whole frequency stuff that Diane was talking about earlier,
Mm-hmm.
and I think this is all interrelated somehow.
Exactly. And that's always been my opinion too, is that, and I feel really redundant continually repeating it, but I don't think it can be said enough. It's like, these kind of things aren't when reality goes sideways. These are the breadcrumbs to explaining and understanding a more complete nature of our reality. These aren't just the hiccups. This is just like giving us a peek into what's underneath all these layers that we're looking at.
I tend to agree. So but ultimately, we want hard answers. So physical crap. So is there? For so long, crazy lady, hey, we're having sex with man from Venus is, she doesn't have, what I saw was a hard physical craft.
Right.
There's some with you get into the high neck stuff, and maybe this is interdimensional, and it, probably is. It might be, see all of the above as far as,
Right.
The nature of what is actually happening is that it is a multidisciplinary kind of thing, and say, everybody wants the one thing kind of answer as far as, is it, it's physical craft from people coming from other solar systems, and
Right.
the blue chicken people is what we like to make fun of, or or do we have some sort of dimensional spirit kind of thing going on with
Right.
what we get into with with what they're trying to do with CERN and open gateways, and
Right.
and that kind of thing. So maybe we've got kind of a all of the above kind of thing going on.
Exactly, and then perhaps there are just many dynamics of the same phenomenon, and it's hard to know. There seems to be a lot of bleed through between aliens / UFO and spirits and ghosts. I mean, there's like an overlap there where it's hard to tell which it is, or which phenomenon are we dealing with, because they're so similar in so many ways. So now with me, the one that I saw was very saucer shaped. It was like the two pie plates with a space in between it with panels of light. We got about 2 minutes before break, but what was the visual description of what you saw?
I thought it was a TR3B.
Okay, so it was triangular.
That was my initial. Yeah.
Okay, and that's really cool.
I thought I was one thing, and I couldn't see it as far as like a triangle kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I saw like maybe one side of it.
Okay.
It was dusk, and but I saw. I could see some details. It was pretty smooth. It was very angular,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought it was at that moment. I was thinking it was. I'm looking at something that's human.
Right.
That was my impression.
Yeah, and that's a real commonly held belief, is that the triangular ones are our remanufactures of backwards engineered technology, and it could be. I don't pretend to know, and that's the tough part about it, is that there's a lot of theories and ideas around that are floating around, and unfortunately nobody's got this all locked down. So it's just a lot of theories and ideas, but. It's just really interesting. I would love to have another conversation with you about the other things you've experienced. If you'd like to call in again on the show whenever you want, brother. I mean, it'd be great to just hear from you and hear more of your journey.
Sure. tons of body experiences, and especially when I was young. Not so much now that I'm getting older, but I still had them. I've had other premonitions and other stuff, but I don't know. We got the guys on Friday got talking about UFOs, and this just popped in mind, and I wanted to call, and so thanks for letting me get it off my chest a little bit.
Man, thank you so much for sharing it here. I mean, I'm just honored, and it's really cool to have a chance to discuss it with you as well. So, anytime, man, anytime the light's on, you're welcome to call.
All right.
All right, buddy. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your night. And ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna go take our last break of the night, and then we'll be back for the last half hour of the show. But this is awesome. It's been a listener-driven show. This is my perfect idea of the portal. So, anyone else want to share anything? The phone lines are open. We'll be right back, though.
The reviews for Extendivite are
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Paranormal Portal. I'm your host, Brent Thomas, and I'm absolutely thrilled that you are here with us. And a special thank you to Diane for calling in earlier, and DJ Caveman, thanks for calling in. And all you guys have just added so much flavor to the show. It's just amazing. It's just amazing to hear from you guys and to hear what's going on and what you've got to say. But before we're done tonight, I want to read an email I just received, and this is, of course, from Dan Pruitt, who is a guest on the show. He's the paranormal investigator that comes on often. He and Lisa Martin are a couple of paranormal investigators that have appeared on the portal, but he emailed, and he said, just wanted to pass along one of my stories. This experience is what made me get into paranormal investigating, and while not the most in-your-face experiences that I've had, it's definitely the one that had the biggest physical and mental effect on me. So it says, and I love it, he's got it in huge font too, which is awesome. Thank you, Dan. It says, our first apartment in Seattle was an older building that needed updating, but was not falling apart by any means. There were 8 units in the building, and we really liked the fact that it was secured. Without a key, you had to be buzzed in, and to actually get into the apartment, you'd then have to go through at least 2 heavy solid wooden doors that everyone on the floor could hear opening and closing, and as the saying goes, they don't make them like that anymore. After a year or so of us being there, the landlord notified everyone that he'd hired plumbers to completely replace the water lines and drains in the building. They'd come up with a plan to minimize the complete outages, but we would be living in an active construction site for a month, and the landlord was a former Navy captain and a really nice guy. Plus, the rent wasn't really unreasonable for Seattle, so we just rolled with it. This was during a few years that I was sleeping on the couch at night because my snoring would keep my wife up. Plus, I'm a bit of a night owl, and our cats don't seem to mind the snoring as much. Amen. Good thing for pets, huh? So I usually had 2 or all 3 close by, and our surprisingly comfortable IKEA couch was probably 10 feet from the front door, and positioned where I could see it when laying down. One night, I awoke with a dread feeling that I'm not sure I can accurately convey. It had to be between 1 a.m. and sunrise, and I could not move, talk, or think. Darkness, despair, fear, and a deafening silence took over the whole room. Literally, the light was sucked out of the room. Little did I know that wouldn't be the last time I'd experienced this phenomena. I wasn't the only one who noticed. 2 of our cats shot off towards the other end of the apartment, while our female Siamese stayed on the couch at my feet and started growling deeply, which was really out of character for her. The only thing I could see was the light from the hallway between apartments shining under the front door. Paralyzed and unable to focus on anything else, I was basically a hostage in my own body. After what felt like a few minutes, my gaze shifted towards the front door, just in time to see the shadows of 2 feet partially block out the light underneath. I started shaking, and the cat growled even more. And that's when the doorbell rang a single time, and the cat took off like a bolt of lightning. I'd have joined her, but I still couldn't move. Some more time passed, maybe 10 minutes, and I watched the feet turn and walk away from the door. I started to notice the streetlights again, and once more, I could move, and I eventually forced myself to get up and walk over to open the door. I'd have definitely heard someone leaving, and there was no way they could get up the outside hallway door without me hearing. Yet nobody was there, and both hallway doors were closed, and I didn't sleep another wink that night, and had terrible dreams for the next week when I did. The cats holed up in the bathroom for a few days as well, barely coming out to socialize. Knowing my wife would claim skepticism, but internally worry if I divulged the whole experience, I simply asked the next day if she'd heard the doorbell ring that night, and she never did. That said, she tended bar for years and can't sleep without background noise and does keep the TV on all night, and I eventually told her about it, but not in the detail that I have here. It wasn't too long after that I took up paranormal investigation. It wasn't my first experience and definitely not my last either, But since then, I've been pushed by entities, yelled at, and seen shadows watching and walking, and I've even seen the top half of an old man glide away from me. But nothing I've encountered has been as completely debilitating as that night. Yeah, that is just terrifying. And you have to wonder, what was it? What was this being? What was sitting right outside of his door and waiting for that door to open? Now, that's the old saying, right? If the doorbell rings and you open it and nobody's there, well, you might have let him in. But at least he saw the shadow walk away first. So that's good. I mean, that is just creepy. And ladies and gentlemen, I don't pretend to know everything that's out there. But if it had that much of a presence, if it had that much of a dark aura, if it had that much intensity of just malice and darkness, then you know that whatever that was, that, I mean, it would have wrecked worlds, I'm sure. It's just that kind of power, and those are the kind of things that can be out there. So those of you that are toying with the idea of taking up paranormal investigating, before you do that, take up and learn really carefully how to protect yourself, because you know you don't go into the boxing ring without learning how to tuck and block and stuff, and you just don't know what you're going to run into, and you don't know what you might be dragging home with you. So learn about this stuff first, because I mean, this is one of those things you don't want to do wrong. I mean, it's your existence after all. So thank you, Dan, for sending that in. That was brilliant. Awesome. I don't know what to tell you. That's incredible. So, very cool. And thank you again, DJ. I do see your email in there. I'll get to that after the show, and I'll see about continuing their dialogue. But yeah, very, very cool. Very, very cool. I see that Diane is calling in again. Diane, did you forget to hang up?
I told him you were going to laugh when you saw it was me double dipping.
That's okay.
But he reminded me of something.
Oh, please go ahead.
Not that I was gonna say at some point on the show, but this was, and this is more the other side of the paranormal. Is I looked into the UFO thing because actually I was born at the height of the UFO season here, and the years that of the most massive sightings of UFOs up here in the Great Lakes area. Mm-hmm. And, 57 was right in that time period. And this is probably the weirdest thing that my mother, well, maybe not the weirdest thing my mother ever laid on me, but one of the weirdest. I had been reading Whitley Strieber, and I'm sure most of you people who know about this stuff know about Whitley Strieber. He was a big name. He had, all the books and the movie and whatever. Mm-hmm. And he was talking about alien hybrid births, right? Right. And how women would be used to incubate a hybrid, and then they would be taken later, and so on and so forth. And he told these stories. And I'm reading this book because I've had stuff happen to me all my freaking life, and so did my dad. And yeah, it does go through family lines. As far as I can tell, it goes. If your parents or your child is having a UFO experience, you just don't remember it. Right. See, so it goes through family lines. Right. That's what I thought too. Yeah. Yeah, I hear that that's almost like a flat fact. But so, I'm reading this and in the book, and I was still at a stage. This was before I died and revived, and I was still at a kind of a skeptical stage about all this. I was just trying to learn about different things, and I was reading things like Life After Life, and I was reading things like Whitley Strieber stuff, and Ruth Montgomery, by the way, is the one who came up with the walk-in idea. Oh, okay. We'll go into that sometime, but what?
I said, oh, okay, yeah.
I didn't want. Okay. And so I'm reading this stuff about the alien hybrids, and I said, well, this is just wild, because basically they do at some point come and, and take the baby. And then, maybe you'll see it later. At some point they'll show it to you or something sometimes. But anyway, the exact thing that he's describing, right? I'm reading it and I'm going, I would never be able to believe this unless it was like a first-hand account by somebody close to me who I trusted.
Right.
Because this is just way too wild. So the very next day, I'm getting ready to get married. My mom finally decides to spring this on me.
Ooh.
She takes me out to a fast food place and says, if you get to heaven and somebody says he's your brother, you could have a brother, because you did have a brother. And I'm like, what?
Wow.
Like, well, yeah, you had a brother, but he didn't make it. He had a problem. He was one of those, waterhead type.
Oh, hydrocephalus.
I said, Mom, you're telling me he had an enlarged cranium.
Yep, hydrocephalus, yeah.
Yeah. And she said, yeah, he had a really big head. And I said, well, what happened to him, Mom? Where is he buried? Is he buried somewhere? Oh, no, he's not buried anywhere. And I said, well, you would think he would be. I mean, anybody who's born gets buried somewhere. And,
right.
But, I said, so anyway, what happened to him then? And she said, oh, the doctors just took him away.
Oh.
And I'm like,
oh, no.
Well, now when I tell that to a person who's like a nurse who's been in an obgyn, they tell me, you know what, that things can happen in an obgyn really easy because there's so much pandemonium, right? But it was exactly the kind of story that Whitley Strieber was describing to the letter.
Right.
And she even said she would have dreams of him, of seeing him.
Okay.
And he would have, he would be a towhead with great big eyes and.
What's a towhead?
And the white hair.
Oh.
White blonde hair.
Okay.
With great big eyes, and he had these big blue eyes, and so on and so forth. But a lot of the hybrids look like that.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh my God. Yeah, and the person she thinks is always showing him to her is Jesus. Which a lot of times when they disguise themselves, they will disguise themselves as somebody you would trust.
Sure.
Like, for instance, Jesus. So I'm sitting there, I'm going, what? You're telling me exactly this story that I just read in Whitley's book? And so basically, does this mean I have a space brother somewhere?
Why not?
I'm like, oh yeah, I'm 28 years old and you finally decide you're going to tell me not only do I have a brother, but you answer exactly this thing that I said. And, all of the restrictions that I put on this are there. Well, let me see. Do I trust her? Is it a first-hand account? And is somebody I know really well? It's my mom. So, how do you, and I swear, I just sat there with my burger and a burger in one hand, a fry in the other, staring at her and just thinking to myself, who was listening to me while I was thinking that, Because Whitley said in his books he has asked them to prove things to him, and they would usually the next day give him some kind of experience that would prove that they were hearing him. And that really creeped me out.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
Because I'm like, did they hear me thinking that?
Probably, yeah.
And then the very next day, my mother decides after 28 years that she's going to tell me I had a brother in this story that spot on matches these stories.
That is amazing. Wow.
Yeah, oh God, yeah, I still, I'm not sure I'm still quite over that, but that means that this has been going on in my family, and yes, then my dad, he would relate stories, but only when he was drunk of UFOs. He would have to be hammered.
Okay, sure.
Because you can't talk about it normally. Yeah.
Right.
So that's the way it is. I just thought I'd say, yeah, I agree. This is one of those weird things that I guess we gotta kind of accept if we are having these things anywhere in our family, these encounters. Well, it goes through the whole family. So
yes,
unfortunately, we kind of got to accept this is happening. And I don't know how many thousands and thousands we are going to have before we can finally just come out and say this just in a regular forum. I mean,
we just need disclosure.
It's Yeah, it's to the point where it's ridiculous. I mean, I know people who will deny and say you're crazy, and then they get drunk or under some kind of duress, and they will admit flat out that they've had stuff happen, and obviously they're just afraid to say so.
Well, yeah, people will desperately hold on to their paradigms. I mean, they just need the security of their world to make sense, and when it doesn't, that just turns them all upside down. For me, I love it when the world doesn't make sense, because that just means there's more to learn,
Absolutely. So, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, you know what, we really do. And I think, unfortunately, we're probably going to have our own, we're having our own disclosure as much as possible. Mm-hmm. Oh, I do want to say one word about the blue bird cult. Oh. The big blue bird cult.
Sure. Go ahead.
I'm listening to stories pro and con, and actually I have listened to some of the people who were, said they were in the secret space program, and said that talked about all these different kinds of aliens, and talked about all of the stuff surrounding that, and all of the everything, that they take kids who are gifted, and just all of this. And I'm thinking back, and that was another really weird thing, is I'm looking right at, while I'm thinking about this, I'm looking right at a picture of Thoth, who was what? Right. A blue bird.
Sure, yeah.
Now, a lot of people know who Thoth is, and they respect Thoth fine, but, it's like Thoth would have been considered, and I mean, obviously, this is not a picture by someone who would have seen him, because they don't look quite like that, but, or so they say, but, do we know? Do we know what they really look like due to the fact that, but I wanted to say, I did meet somebody who was under the influence, and I kind of let it slip that I had, I told you the same story that I told her. I told her that story. She goes, well, then you'd probably understand this. And in front of my eyes, to my psychic eyes, she started to turn into, what do you think it was? A big blue bird. And I'm sitting there and I'm going, well, that's interesting. And she goes, would you like to see my city? And I'm like, what?
Wow.
She did. And we astrally traveled to her city, and she said, you're safe. I think you're pretty safe. You're not going to ever show anybody how to get here, are you? And I'm like, no, of course not. Why would I ever do that? She says, okay, well, yeah. She said, I just thought you should know, since you were sharing with me all about you. I thought I'd just let you know. And I'm like, oh, really? Okay, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. And then all of a sudden, we were back in the room.
Wow. That's really powerful, yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I'm like,
it's just,
okay.
What is possible?
So, all my best friends are aliens. Okay, and my family. Okay, great.
Well, the Chinese have said for years
what?
that the aliens are living among us. The Chinese government has made that claim.
I think they are.
Yep. So
I believe they are, and maybe the aliens is us.
Well,
maybe some of them are us.
There is that. Are we a seeded race? Are we created race? A slave race? I don't know. I wish I had all those answers. I just guess as far as any of this is concerned, it's all on the table, and I don't pretend to know. I've heard all of the controversies too regarding the blue avians and all of that, and I don't know. I mean, who am I to say what's possible and what isn't possible? I mean, I just try to keep an open mind and just take it as it comes, and I try to learn where I can. And if something doesn't fit, I just discard it because maybe I'm not ready for it, or maybe it's not true. I just don't know. But it's
yeah, I don't know either. I sit there and I think to myself, I frequently try to meditate on these things, and sometimes all I get is tilt, and but a lot of times I do get as far as I can tell, when I meditate on an answer, the truest answer is just about everything actually exists in some dimension or other.
Right.
But perhaps we just don't know how many. I mean, now they're saying that if you are traveling, if you have deep space travel, you also have time travel, and you also have interdimensional travel because it's all tied up together.
Exactly.
And that is one of the latest testimonies.
Yep.
So now, how do we know?
I don't know, my dear.
What
but that's
could
about all
be possible?
That's about all we got time for tonight, Diane. Thank you so much for calling in. And,
okay.
I got one more call to get to. Quick.
Thanks again.
Okay, we'll talk to you soon. All right, let's get to this call quick. 910, you're on the air. We only got a couple minutes left, but please go ahead.
Yes, I've heard all the people, talking about their experiences, and I know many people have had experiences. I've had experiences, but what I would say is, how animals see what you would call spirits or aliens or whatever you want to call it? Okay.
Yep.
So these entities are here. It's not like they're in outer space somewhere. They are here.
Okay.
You can only, if they present themselves to you, you can see them, correct?
Yeah, that's what it seems like, that they choose whether or not you observe them. Yep.
And there are different shapes and different kinds, correct?
Yes, sir. Yep. As I understand it.
Okay. Have you ever covered the Nephilim?
No, not too much on the show, and not because not because I'm not interested in it, because it's just one of those subjects that there's so many people doing it, and they do it much better than I ever could. But I think it's a great subject.
Yeah, I think it is also. And all these people who wonder, well, how could this thing know, and how could it know this and that? If they've been here forever,
well,
and they can pick up on body language and everything like that. I mean,
sure.
Come on, guys.
There is that. That's true.
I think that's something we need to study.
That's a great point, brother. I appreciate that.
All right, man. Appreciate your time.
All right. You have a great night. Thanks for calling in and being a part of the show, Jake. We'll talk to you soon. You guys, thank you so much for being here, being a part of the show. Remember, go over to ialife.com, and all you listeners of TFR, iHeart, TuneIn, and TalkStream, and those of you checking us out on YouTube, can pick up the iAlife and save $5 a bottle if you enter the code TFR on your checkout. So definitely check it out, ialife.com. Amazing CBD oil. Stick around for Nikki Colombo will be coming up next, and she has two guests, Miss Jolene Seebacher and our own Lucky will be joining her, and they'll be having a roundtable discussion on the Nikki Colombo show coming up right in just a couple minutes away. But thank you all for being a part of the show, and thank you to all the people who've contributed to the show. You guys make this amazing. You guys make this show incredible. And I'm talking about all you people just sitting there listening, or if you're in the chat room sharing ideas or discussions and creating that community, to all of you that are writing your emails in to share with us on the show so that we can discuss what you've seen and heard, to the callers of the show calling in, and we're having these discussions. And I tell you what, I love that you guys are always thinking, and that you guys are always bringing new angles of this information, because the one word I hate in the paranormal is expert. I don't believe there is such a thing, because how can you become an expert at something that is not lending itself to scientific study? It's not lending itself to repeated experiments and provable, quantifiable results. It's just, it happens when it happens. So I don't believe when people claim that they're experts, it's hard for me to get behind that, because I think everybody's as qualified as an expert as anyone else in this topic. But you guys are amazing, and you make this show amazing. And I'm just telling you, I feel absolutely honored to be here doing the show. We will be back tomorrow night again. Don will be joining me, and I'm not sure what kind of mayhem we're going to get into, but I can guarantee you it'll have a few laughs involved, because, it's just the way we roll. But that'll be our Saturday night show here on TFR, TuneIn, iHeart, TalkStream Live, and also simulcast on YouTube on our Paranormal Portal channel. And you can check out the TFR Live channel on YouTube as well. That's all the shows are being broadcast over there as well. So love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other, and we'll see you tomorrow night.